Welcome to Ripstop on the Record, the podcast for makers, by makers, where we talk about all things MYOG. Brought to you by Ripstop by the Roll. I think it's good, right?
Yeah, I think that was a good take.
Hey everyone, welcome to Ripstop on the Record. I'm Jameson.
And I'm Avery.
On today's episode, we are talking about what should be on you, the MYOGers Christmas list, as well as reviewing some popular, but also maybe some unorthodox sewing gadgets that you need to have in your makerspace. Today's guest is no stranger to the podcast. It's Matt Evans from Red Paw Packs. So we'll get into all of that in just a second, but first, a few updates.
Our DIY kit sale is live now through Friday, December 6th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't miss out on getting kits for less. 1 to 2 kits, you get 15% off. 3 to 4 kits, you get 20% off. And 5+ kits are 25% off.
Not to mention, every kit purchase gets a free gift. So I might be a little bit biased because I kind of made the sunglasses kit, but there's a free digital pattern for the ultralight glasses case that you can get if you buy any kit. So this is a free pattern. You just download, it's a PDF, and you can get it. So any kit purchase qualifies. So make sure you go get at least one because then you can get this free pattern.
And as always, don't forget to like, comment, review, rate, subscribe, watch us on YouTube, send this episode or your favorite episode of the year to your friends and spread the word. We'd greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, on to the pod. Hey Matt, welcome back to Ripstop on the Record.
Thanks for having me once again.
Of course. So, what have you been up to lately? Fall, winter in Florida? What kind of packs is Red Paw making? What are you getting yourself into these days?
Honestly, it's kind of a lot of the same. I have some new things in the works. I have a new pack, a different size I'm going to make, different style. I don't know when that's going to get released because I've been super busy with the holiday rush. Yeah. So that's kind of kept my hands busy, but a little smaller than the front range pack. Little sleeker, some cool new hardware pieces, some new functionality. So I'm trying to add and innovate a little bit based on what I've normally done. I normally stick to real simple and, kind of simplistic design. And I like that a lot. And I think people appreciate that. But I want to do something a little more suave in the design area. So I'm working on something new.
I love that. Yeah, I can't wait to see more of what you got there. So, kind of a fun icebreaker question for you here. What was the very last item off your sewing machine?
This.
Oh, sweet. That's
So
go ahead.
So this is outdoor ink. This is a photo that I took of El Capitan in Yosemite. I think I took this photo at on a 300 millimeter lens, super far away. And I had to color edit it a little bit because, I wanted it to stand out and you get the yellows and golds and stuff. But this is the print I've been really excited about. Actually, we gave a pack like this away at Trailways last year. And I was just so blown away. I was like, okay, I got to get more. So I'm only doing a couple for sale. I've made bags with this for myself and kind of kept them on the down low. Maybe one day I'll show those off. But yeah, this is the last thing. I just did this 5 minutes before we got on.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is a great pattern. I love stuff that is has a natural base, but also is kind of like that abstract, because you don't really know that's granite at first, but once you get into it, you're like, oh, this totally makes sense. But I love that. It's a good look. It's a good pattern.
It looks better bigger.
That's fair. Yeah.
On a backpack, I did a duffel bag for a buddy. It looks like a rock. Like if you placed it down in the grass, you'd be like, "Whoa, that's kind of cool." It kind of blends in, and So when it's bigger, it scales a little better. When it's small like this, you have to really kind of get close to appreciate it, in my opinion. But from far away, a big piece with that print on it is just to me, that lights me on fire. That gets me excited.
Yeah. That's a sweet photo. All right, so next question I thought about asking you, because I like to just talk to other makers sometimes, and being a podcast of makers, I think we all have these things running through our heads. So I'm interested to hear what a professional like yourself would say. What is one MYOG thing that has been annoying you the most recently?
What has been annoying me the most? It's cutting. Just straight up, it's just cutting stuff. I mean, that's
Yeah.
always annoyed me the most. Always, always. I guess besides that, I wish I had a cylinder arm machine for binding.
Yes.
I
Yes.
am just I have just been torturing myself for years by not having that. The problem is I don't have the space for another machine, so
Fair.
I just can't do it. Um,
Yeah.
I really want to do it, and I think it'd be worth it, but
Could be worth the
I
space.
can't. Yeah, I need to like get a big space or
Yeah.
something like that, or you know. But that's
Yeah.
my biggest annoyance is I'm literally using a binding tool or I'm hand folding nylon ribbon.
Yeah.
Um, that's no bueno. That's not fun, especially because it's like it's way easier to mess up. And
Sure.
you know, I'm a perfectionist when it comes to this stuff. So it's like I messed up a
Yeah.
little bit, I'm fixing it right away, and it just takes too
Right.
long.
Yeah.
So that's what's bugging me.
That makes a lot of sense. The cutting side. We've talked about some of your like cutting techniques before, but I guess one question I have is what do you do for all of your templates? Like do you do acrylic? Do you have cardboard cutouts? Like what do you do for like cutting out all your pattern pieces?
It's a mix of both. Um,
Okay.
if it because sometimes I'll update stuff. Like it's not
Yeah.
a yearly thing, but like maybe every 6 months I'll probably update one or two pieces, and then I'll use basically Manila folder
Hmm.
paper.
Yeah.
I don't know, they just call it drafting paper when you buy
Sure.
it online. So I like that stuff a lot. It's super reusable. I mean,
Yeah.
it really lasts a while considering it's just cardstock.
Yeah.
But on my main bags, yeah, I do acrylic. And those I like figured out how to laser cut and then went to a maker space and then
Yeah.
cut the acrylic and then you can mark it. It's translucent. I mean, that's the best way to be. But you have to really replicate the product a bunch of times for it to be worth it. So
Right.
yeah, like the fanny packs, the two main bags that I do, that's all acrylic.
Okay. Okay.
Some of the pieces, like maybe the bottom pocket, I tweaked that, you know, a year ago. Oh, now that's cardstock and not laser cut acrylic. But when something stays in the rotation for like a full year, then I just bite the bullet and just do acrylic because I mean it's a
Yeah.
little more expensive, but it's so much faster.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's so much easier to store too. Like, do you ever have problems with your manila folders just like or paper like just folding up and like curling on the edges and stuff?
It will a little bit, but the folder paper is good. If you just get regular pattern paper, that will
Hmm.
happen,
Yeah.
and it'll come folded when you order it too. So like you know you have to use
Yep.
weights. That's the main issue for me is you have to use weights. So like all
Yep.
my clothing patterns, it's all that cheap paper.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, but I just hang it vertically. So I hole punch, and
Yep.
then I stick like a binder ring through it, hang it vertically,
Yep.
and I have like a shelf hanger thing that's like two layered, and it's just a big rod. So
Sure.
then I'll just clip on with the binder rings onto the rod, and then I can slide them around and pull it off, and
Yep.
it's easy and
That's
it keeps
smart.
them safe.
Yeah. We talked to Dan McEwen, the Sofka designer, a couple episodes ago, and he said something similar where he does like binder clips, like he binder like alligator clips to the pattern pieces together, and then like uses a hook to hang them up. I'm thinking I might do something similar in here because we have like the flat lay drawers, which are pretty good. But one thing I didn't think about with the flat lay drawers is if you have like a bunch of patterns that each have a couple pattern pieces clipped together, and they're all even if they're laying flat, you have like this stack of like 40 pieces of paper where it's like 7 for this pattern, 3 for this one, and 9 for this one. And, you know, like they're kind of all laying on top of each other anyway. So I might do some sort of like curtain rod thing in the makerspace where you can like hang them up. And especially the apparel pieces, I find those to be like the most annoying when they're laying down, I think. Like the Alpha Raglan hoodie and the camp pants and the DS shorts, stuff like that. I might get hung up in here. Like my little fanny pack patterns that I like that I do, that doesn't fold up because it's only like 9 inches wide, you know, but that's a good idea. I
The
like
other
that.
thing with the binder ring is so you have a bunch of pieces for one pattern. So like the front range 40
Mhm.
has like a bunch of pieces. Some are big, some are small.
Sure.
With the hole punch at the top, I mean, you have your ring, you can just flip over that piece. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I need the bottom pocket piece. Perfect. Flip, flip.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
here it
pretty
is.
sweet.
Unclip, pull it off, clip
Yep.
back. And then everything else still stays in one place. Whereas the binder clip, you're gonna have to pull everything out.
Yeah.
And then good luck because you have to like line it up and then clip it after. It's like it takes way longer.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And those things are cheap. Those are like shower curtain rod type hook things. Like you can
Yeah.
get 10 of those for $10 kind of deal.
Yeah. And my setups are really like ghetto. Like I'm just using like the closet thing was free. And
Yeah,
then like
yeah,
otherwise I'm using like a moving like $20 Amazon clothing rack that holds a bunch of stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Or I have like some random like shower curtain rod that's like up here, and then like I've like zip tied it to a tower of like storage, and
Yeah,
you can do it really cheap or free. That's what I
yeah,
like about that system, and it's just fast and it works.
yeah, yeah. Speed is nice. Okay, opposing question. What has been something that has been inspiring you or has been the most exciting about your MYOG business process right now?
Um, honestly, the support from the Black Friday sale kind of blew me away, and I was really
Hmm.
happy like that because
Yeah,
I don't know, man. Like for me recently, I've been keeping the lights on.
sure.
I've had a lot of stuff going on at home, and I've just been like, all right, let me just keep the lights on, make sure people get their stuff. I meet my obligations,
Yeah,
and I try to do a little extra, and then I don't work myself to death.
yeah,
Um, and the other part of the being shocked by the Black Friday sale results was I think Instagram and Facebook are just throttling every business account, or
yeah.
maybe it's just me and I'm
Yep,
crazy. I don't know, but like you grow your Instagram or whatever over so long, and then all of a sudden nobody sees your things, even though you have
yeah,
more followers than ever.
yeah.
So I expected nothing. I expected nobody to check out the site. I expected
Sure.
everyone to shop everywhere else because they never saw anything.
Right.
Um, Luckily, I was surprised and people showed up, and I'm greatly appreciative. But so that kind of lit a fire under my ass to keep working, and
Yeah.
sometimes things will surprise you, and it's for the better.
Sure. No, I don't think that's any like sort of conspiracy, especially in like the sales season. I am a fan of Black Friday no longer being like a specific day. Like I think it's better for the businesses and everyone not to like work overnight or like start at 4 a.m. or whatever. Like it's better to have like the Black Friday season. But like Amazon, Walmart, Target, like I don't know, probably 100 big companies just run everything. Like the ad spend these days is insane. It's so difficult to get any amount of ad space, and I think that it's where it just goes to prove like having customers that believe in what you do and believe who you are. Like people seek you out. Like they went to redpaw.com because they were like, I love Redpaw. Maybe they're doing a Black Friday thing. Maybe not because they saw it. Maybe they did, but they're just like, no, I want to support my favorite companies. I'm going to go to their website to check it out, even if they didn't see what was going on.
And I proved that too with Google Analytics, because I
Yeah.
decided, oh, let me run some ads. Let me,
Yeah.
I never do ads. I almost never have.
Right.
I've spent under $500 on ads in the last 7 years, right? So
Wow. Yeah.
I was like, okay, let me just think about it. Let me experiment. And
Right.
um, ads did absolutely nothing. And then and here's the other crazy part: organic social media stuff.
Yeah.
So you make a post to 23,000 people,
Sure.
right? And under 10 people engage with your post, aka like or comment, or
Yeah.
under
Yeah.
10. Something weird is going on.
Yeah.
Especially if it's something cool too. If it was some dumb thing, but like I feel like seeing something like this on your timeline
Right.
when you're like an outdoor gear nerd,
Yeah. You're going to like
you'd be
that.
like, oh, that's kind of cool. At least it's
Sure.
different,
Yeah.
And it used to be hundreds of people would see that and be like, wow, that is really cool, and would engage with it.
Yeah.
I think under 150 people even saw it.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I guess the moral of the story is people actually showed up,
That's
and
cool.
Google Analytics says, yeah, they just typed it into Google.
Yeah. Yeah.
Direct
That's really
search
cool.
result or like referral from me somewhere else. And that was it.
That is pretty sweet. Yeah. No, I love that. Just a reminder, everyone, if you know of cottage companies in your head, just go look them up. Even if you didn't see a post, like just shoot them some love. They're real people that appreciate it. There's
Yep.
not always a business behind it. Sometimes it's just Matt in his bedroom.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what's going on here.
Okay, so Christmas is right around the corner. We're a couple of weeks away here. So one question or one thing that I deliberate and struggle with every single year is if I should make Christmas gifts for people or not, because I have grand ideas. People love to ask for them, or they're like, oh, one day I'd love like this custom fanny pack, whatever. So my question to you, Matt, is do you make Christmas gifts or do you just buy them because you're so burned out from sewing every other day of the year?
It depends what we're doing. So
Okay.
I've made Christmas gifts probably 5 and 11 of the 7 last years. So
Okay.
like
Wow.
most of the time I do make them.
Yeah.
but they're small. They're token
Yeah.
items. I mean, sometimes we'll
Sure.
just do gag gifts, like everyone in
Yeah.
my family's grown. Like we don't do
Right. You don't need that
gifts
many
like
things
that.
normally. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want anything. Nobody wants anything.
Yeah.
So like we'll like give each other like a reindeer thong for Christmas or something, something goofy.
Is that what happened
But
to your DCF? Your DCF underwear? Is that what happened to it?
I still have it. Oh, it's
Oh,
actually it's right
you
off
didn't give it
screen,
away?
but I have it. I didn't give. No, that's memorabilia. I keep that. So yeah, I do make them. Sometimes it depends what we're doing. So like when I was living in Colorado, it was super cold and it was like going to snow a bunch, and
Mhm.
my parents were flying over to visit. So I was like, okay, let me make everyone like a fleece, like a thick fleece neck gaiter. So that was 1 year.
Yeah.
Another year, my nephew was just being born or was just born like 3 months old. So I made like a fleece baby blanket.
Yeah.
So I do stuff, but they're never expensive. They're more just like, here's something small and fun, and
Yeah. Yeah.
who
That makes sense.
cares?
They're not like your signature products that you're turning out more of.
No, like I mean, 1 year I made my parents a backpack. They're going on some trip to Ireland, and so
Yeah.
I got custom printed fabric from you guys. It was like Kelly green, Irish
That's
green,
cool.
and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, this is worth it,
Sure.
and they loved that. Um, but I never do giant time expenditures because people just appreciate that you did something at all that wasn't
Yeah.
just like bought on Amazon and that's it.
Yeah. No, that's so true. I don't typically it's not the things that are like the biggest that I make people. It's just like, I don't know. I make people a lot of ZPPs because you can make one in like 15 minutes and I find them just endlessly useful. And they're like, you made this? Like, this was literally 15 minutes of my life. Like, no offense. I'm not trying to say that you're not worth more. Just like, I only had a few minutes. I wanted to make you something. Like, but you made it. Like, it's really not that hard, I promise. But they do
Yeah.
appreciate it, which is really sweet.
Yep. If people ask for something more elaborate, I would do it.
Yeah.
But they never do because they're like, oh, well, he's doing this all the time. So
Yeah.
they know that better than anybody. So they never ask for elaborate stuff, even though I'd be willing to do it happily.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't ruin the surprise, everybody. It's a Ripstop on the record secret. So, are you making gifts this year? Do you have anything up your sleeve that you gotta pull out in the next 23 days or something?
I haven't planned a single thing. I've been too busy. And normally I'll do it like the week before
Yeah.
and just hopefully I have everything here for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it ends up going every time.
Yeah, that's fair. I am notorious for doing like last minute, specifically before trips. I think I've talked about this before, but like if I'm going on, like last week, my wife and I were flying out west. We visited Isaac, for those of you that remember Isaac and his wife, and we spent some time on our own. And she told me, I hate bags without zippers. So she was like, oh, I'm probably going to bring this tote bag. And it did have a zipper closure. And I'm like, you're going to, like, your AirPods are going to end up on the other side of the plane and your water bottle will be rolling like 3 rows in front of you. So I got in my head that I should make her a new tote bag. So it was like literally the day before we left. So like 4 hours here sewing. It just always works out that way. I like doing that kind of stuff, I guess, but it does create some like needless angst, I think.
I do too, and it's like you just can't help yourself. You're
Yeah.
just like, I gotta do this right now, or it's
I
gonna
want
drive
the
me
perfect
crazy.
thing for the trip every time.
Yep. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
we talked about this where I'm just like constantly like, ooh, maybe I'll make another bag for this trip. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe I have some very particular need for a new bag, and then
Yeah.
then here I am the night before, just like you said,
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah, I think last time, I can't remember if you were on this episode or not. Last time Francesca was on, though, she just mentioned, like, very kindly and very casually, she's like, oh, I think sometimes MYOGers are known for, like, kind of having a consumerist mindset. And I was like, not me making a new bag for my trip. Shoot.
Yeah.
Whoops. Okay, so I want to keep talking about Christmas a little bit, but change the lens to be away from kind of like gifts to, well, gifts that you're giving to gifts that you may be receiving or MYOGers may want to receive. So let's do a little bit of game here. We're going to create the MYOGers gift guide. So let's come up with 5 items that every MYOGer would want, whether they're maybe somewhat in it. Like, we're not going to say beginner, but someone that's already done some making, already created some of their own things, up to a pretty experienced maker. So 5 things that they definitely should have.
Should we go back and forth?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, here's the first one. This is something that I've been loving for the last year or so. It's spring-loaded snips. So it has a little bit of pressure. I
Yep.
use these as thread snippers, but the
Yeah.
thing is they're also sharp enough to just trim fabric too, or just cut little small slits for
Okay.
corners
Yeah.
and things.
I was going to say, they're like, they're like mini scissors. They're not even like full, like they're bigger than, like twice as big as thread snips maybe, but like a quarter the size
Yeah.
of scissors.
Yep. I mean, they're just so small and light, and then the other
Yeah.
thing is you can just kind of put it away easily
'em.
too.
Yeah.
It's like a $10 thing, and
Yeah.
honestly, like every maker should have some sort of thread snip or small
Definitely.
sharp scissor. I love these. I haven't had to sharpen them for a whole year. They're still
Dang.
just fine. I'm
That
like
is
cutting
really
through
good.
zippers and webbing and whatever. Like,
Oh, so they're like
there's
proper
my
sharp.
first one. Yeah. Oh, they're good.
Yeah. Those are dangerous. That's how I snip the corners off my stuff on accident. When I go to like trim threads,
It
I
is
just like
dangerous.
take out the fabric too.
The other thing is also it's a sharp point.
Yeah. That is pretty fine point, which is nice.
Like
You
I
can
mean
really get in there.
that's an eyeball poker. You know, that's not that's nothing to play around with, but you know, it works well. Just don't like, you know, pierce stuff with it or you will
Sure.
cut yourself, and I have. For
Yeah.
sure.
That is a good call. I do think that's a good like general topic as well. Like you can pretty much get any MYOG, or if you're an MYOG you're looking to make like a Christmas list of some sort, like scissors, thread snips. You pretty much can't go wrong and can't have too many. I mean, unless you're like in a really, really tight space, but like fresh scissors will always go a long way. But I do like the idea of having like a medium-sized scissor. We have like, I don't know, like the 6-inch Fiskars scissors and then like the small Fiskar thread snips around here, but having like a medium-sized one, that would be pretty handy. I like that idea.
I've got a really good pair of scissors that I recommend. They're from Kai, Kai, aka Kershaw. It's just one of their other brands.
Sure.
And of course, they're far away and on my other tables, but they're really nice. They're like $60, but they are super good scissors, man.
Yeah.
They're fancy. That's for someone who you know deserves a pair of fancy scissors.
Are they like $40 scissors? What are we talking?
Maybe 60, 70,
Okay.
Something like that.
Sure. Yeah, but still under $100. This is the roughly under $100 MYOG gift guide.
Yeah. I'm not going to spend over 100 on scissors, man.
Yeah.
I just won't.
Even that's coming from a professional too. I mean, I definitely would.
I've already got 10 pairs. You know, I have no need for more expensive ones.
Yeah. Can you sharpen those guys?
Yeah.
That's the transition I want to make. We talked about this not long ago either. But like I mark the scissors like the date that I put them in the makerspace, and after they've been there for like 6 months, normally you can just tell because they have like a burr in them or something. But I just throw them away, and I feel bad about that. But we use them too much, especially cutting through DCF and Venom and like Ultra and those stuff. Just choose the scissors up, and I really want to get some scissors that I can sharpen and not just throw scissors away as frivolously as I do.
Well, if you get a decent pair, you know, like on the swivel, like right here, I mean, you can just unscrew it. Like even these will unscrew, but like on the nice pairs, you'll have like something you might have to get with pliers and just kind of loosen them up. That works just fine. And then you can take it out and sharpen it however you want, or you just get a scissor sharpener. That's not like the finest edge because they're using those coarse sharpening stones, but it works just fine, especially when they're already getting eat up anyway.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Sometimes it feels like it just needs to just get the burrs out, just like give it a little bit of an edge again, you know, like especially going through like an Ultra and DCF, that stuff. I feel like it just turns into like a spoon, like it's just like two spoons cutting each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So my first one was like medium-sized scissors or snips or just new cutting tools in general. I'm going to say new pack of needles just because I don't change my needle enough. We just did a huge gift guide or a thread and needle guide. I mean, not a plug, but it does work out that way, I guess. But the MYOG in your life, and if you're looking to make your list, you can't have enough needles because if you have too many, then you can actually change them as much as you should. And if you don't have enough, then you really should change them anyway. So go get yourself some Schmetz Microtex 14s. That's pretty much all we use here. I mean, if you read the blog, then you know, but I'm going to give you a little bit of the cliff note here. You can read the whole blog, but more or less we use one thread and one needle all the time and just change the tension a little bit.
I mean, that's pretty much what I do too, to be honest. I probably should alternate sizes more. I use either a 16 or an 18 needle, and then I use Tex 70 bonded nylon Anafil A&E thread. Almost everything. Other machines are threaded with other things, either like lighter weight cones. I think both of these are Tex 45, or like I'm using like the thin Gutterman thread on my like Singer machine, my heavy duty.
Yeah.
But the main machine is always using that exact combo.
Yeah. I mean, and that like recently I've sewn a ski bag with 1680 ballistic nylon and 2-inch seatbelt webbing. And I've also sewn like a cycling vest that is uh, Mem 10 with Alpha Direct 4004. Like that is the span of stuff that I've sewn with that exact setup. So I mean, needles are also
Dang.
like $4. I don't know. Like this is super cheap. People get more needles.
This is good advice for me too. I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, I guess I'm speaking to myself too.
Yeah, I gotta get better about that too, because sometimes I'll do stuff that will warrant like nearly breaking a needle,
Yeah,
like going through like a whole hip belt plus like 2
yeah,
or 3 layers of webbing. That's when I'm like, okay, this might break, and then I'll be able to just replace it after.
yeah. I like the little thumbs up bubbles we're getting. Riverside's like getting a little feedback here. Speaking of needles, I had a funny interaction 2 weeks ago. I was sewing something. I think it was at Ski Bag, and I was going through, and I was like getting really close to the machine, trying to like figure out what was going on. I'm like, is this the right thing? Like, just I had to like really nail the stitch for some reason. I had like a very small margin for error, so I was like getting really close. I mean, like my face was like getting closer to it, and I like was going through, and as I was like, okay, I'm in the clear. I started to back up. The needle just broke, and I felt it like hit my cheek, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that sewing was something I needed to wear safety goggles for.
Yep.
I felt so dumb that I was like, that was so foolish, but also what am I doing that like I could be going slow and just snap the needle in half. And yeah, that was I realized I was like manhandling the material too much. So I was like bending the needle as it was going through, which is why it snapped. Not this is not to say that I used the wrong size needle, people, just FYI. But it's like, wow,
Well, sometimes
that could have been
you
bad.
torque it the wrong way, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's bending, and then it goes down, it hits a plate, and then it's broken.
Yeah, yeah. Especially because like a ski bag is enormous, right? That's like almost 6 feet tall, and that's what I
Yep.
was trying to wedge under there. I think it was like the 1680 ballistic, a couple layers, as well as the 2-inch seatbelt webbing. So I was trying to fit all of that like under the machine, like wrangle all this material, and that's really easy when that's the part when it's easy to like start to pull it on accident. But it was kind of funny because I was like, geez, I've never thought about what it would be like to get a part of a needle shard in my face. That was not ideal.
Oh yeah. Every time I run the bar tack machine, I have glasses on. I keep them
That's a good
right
idea,
next to it
especially for
every
that
time.
one.
It was like the first week I got it. I mean, I got hit with a needle like right in my
Really?
lower eyelid. That happened exactly once, and I was like, okay, nope, never again.
Yep,
It's too
not worth
scary.
it.
It's loud and scary. It warned me by being so loud and scary. I should have
Yeah.
known. So
The bar
every
tacker
time
that also goes at like 1,000 miles an hour, I think.
it's fast. It's really scary fast. It's like it
Yeah,
gurgles like an old engine. You know, it's just like it's telling you to be scared.
yeah, yeah. All right, Matt. What's the fourth item or third item? What's the third item on the list?
Okay, this isn't for everybody, but this is such a
Okay,
cool item. I feel like I have to share. It's an expensive gift though, so
okay.
I don't know if it really fits. All right, check this out. This is a laser cutter, or not a laser cutter, laser engraver for leather.
Oh wow, this is
This little
niche.
thing. It's niche, but it's like as a maker, you see a lot of
Yeah,
leather get used.
yeah, yes.
Um, this tiny little thing is like
Wow.
it was like $230. I have
Okay,
done so much with this and had so much fun. I have made my house
that's
smell like
awesome.
burnt leather for days at a time.
Is that a good
And get
smell or is that like cancer-inducing smell?
well, my family would say it's a horrible smell. Personally, I don't mind.
Okay,
Because it's working for me. You know, like
sure, fair.
it's in here doing work while I'm
Yeah.
just kind of watching it. And by the way, you have to put on like super like X-ray specs just
Okay.
because the laser's gonna blind you by looking
Matt's
at
got
it.
welding glasses on right now, by the way.
Oh, here we go. So you put on your X-ray specs and then you turn the laser on.
Now you're
Um,
Florida man.
it runs probably 20 minutes. I'll pull out a leather patch it later, but it runs about 20 minutes. And then you have
Okay.
like a really detailed thing. Like I did this logo onto
Hmm.
like a 2-inch by 2-inch piece of leather, cut it out, turn it into patches for my bags and stuff. Um,
That's cool.
it adds a really unique level of customization.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very expensive. I know, fine. Not everyone's going to deduct this from their business expenses, right? Very cool. And the name is hilarious. It's called the Laser Pecker.
Oh no,
I'm not kidding.
you're
Look it up on
joking.
Amazon. I'm completely serious.
Oh my gosh, that I don't, um, that is awesome. I
It's
don't want to go
fun.
down the leather rabbit hole, but it's actually kind of funny that you mentioned that because I have been contemplating like some leather work stuff, and I hope Carter never hears that because I don't know, he'll have funny things to say to me. But yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking about more like incorporating leather stuff into some of the things that we are going around here because it just sounds kind of fun, classy, you know.
I think you should try it. Admittedly, it's a headache. Like
Sure.
because you have to get the right feed dogs for your machine. Otherwise, the bottom is going to get all scratched up.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one thing. Then you have to get your presser foot tension just right so the top doesn't get all like roughed up by the foot. So then once you figured out all those problems, then you learn you have to stitch it differently too. Now you can hand stitch it or you can use your machine like I do because I'm lazy.
Yeah.
I don't want to hand stitch. I've
Yeah.
got
That sounds bad.
thousands of dollars of machines here. So I do that and it ends up looking somewhat sloppy and I just accept that's the result and it's
Sure.
fine. But like here's a fun little thing.
That is really clear. The fidelity, like the image fidelity of the laser engraver is pretty solid.
Yeah. Like it's way more solid than my stitching is. You know, it's
Yeah.
like and you choose how you want to engrave it. You can engrave a bunch of stuff. You can do plastic, although that seems risky. You can do metal.
Yeah.
You can do wood. I mean, I just wanted leather. So, like, all I did was I just stitched it on the Velcro, and now I can put it on any bag with Velcro. Done.
So it can do multiple materials, not just leather.
Oh, you can do paper. You can do
Wow.
cardstock. Blew
Okay,
my
so
mind.
so what's the like? Do you plug this into your computer and there's like an app, or like how does it? How do you
There's an app on
like
your
choose the
phone.
material? Okay, so it's like a Cricut.
It's
but
super
for
easy. And you can do it from a photo too. I could
that's
take a
so
photo
sick.
of you like shoulders up,
Yeah.
put it right into the app, and you play with like 2 settings, literally 10 seconds. Begin, and it starts lasering, and that's it.
Wow.
I should be sponsored by these guys, but I'm not. I mean, I'm telling you, it's a very cool product. I'm just genuinely enthusiastic about it. It's really fun. It has no
That's pretty
bearing
sweet.
for me on
Sure.
like product innovation or anything like.
Yeah.
I got this
Yeah.
as like a fun toy. That's why
Yeah.
I think it's a fun Christmas gift.
No, that is really cool, especially it's a Christmas gift because I am a firm believer. I guess I'm speaking to my consumerism now more so, but I'm a firm believer that Christmas gifts shouldn't be like household items that you need for like chores and stuff. I love Christmas gifts that are like fun, unique things that I would really want myself, but I didn't end up buying normally. That's what I want for Christmas personally. Stuff that's like a little bit unique and that like I don't need for everyday life, but like I really, really want. Like I don't want to get,
Yep.
I don't know, I don't want to get like a lawnmower for Christmas. Like no, that's a chore. I want something that I actually like want to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. That is super niche, but I appreciate that, and I think that is in line with what our makers are doing, what people want to do. I'm all about it.
That doesn't fit everybody, but somebody
Yeah,
out there is going to see that and say, "Yeah, I'm going to get one of those," and
yeah,
they'll be delighted because it's really fun.
yeah. Okay. My next tip, I'm in between two. I've been thinking, waffling back and forth. I'm gonna say Wonder Clips. It's another one of those things that's very cheap, but it's another one of those things that you pretty much can't have enough of. We have multiple boxes floating around, and unfortunately, it's just one of those things that they break, they get lost, they end up under a table forever and ever, and you never see them again. They get vacuumed up. Um, but I use them for every project, always. Like they're an absolute necessity for any maker. Different colors, like Matt's got. That's always a fun idea. You can color code things. Um, but yeah, Wonder Clips. They're really basic, especially if you're sewing a lot of laminates. Then you can't pin them together. At least you shouldn't. So yeah, I think Wonder Clips are $20 on the website. You get a pack of like 50. They come in a nice box, see through. It's really easy, but they're just a necessity. So I don't think you can go wrong by asking for them or giving them.
I couldn't agree more. I use them all the time.
Yeah.
I've had people roast me. Like I've had other like
Really?
makers and like business owners like, dude, like you're using those? I'm like, hell yeah,
Yeah.
I'm using them. Are you joking?
What else would you use?
So they're just like, well, if you're really good, you just put everything in place and just
Oh,
hold
yeah.
it all with your hands. I'm like, dude, like
Well,
not me. I want to
yeah.
hold stuff where I want it to go. I need to.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Don't
use
get me
those. I
wrong.
live by those.
I've also just held stuff in place, but sometimes I want to like measure things out. You know, something like if I'm gonna do like a, I don't know, shot cord lacing, and I'm gonna put like a couple of grow grain tabs, I want to make sure I've got those things dialed first. I'll hold them in place later, but I want to mark them. You know, make sure they're in the right spot. So there are tons of uses. You don't have to. We're not gatekeeping wonder clips here, people.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of those, and I think it makes your life a lot easier. But they
Yeah,
will break often if you use them long enough. They're just
yeah,
plastic, and like
yeah,
they just crack, especially if it's on something kind of thick. Like you have like five
yeah,
stacks of webbing. All of a sudden, you're gonna just get a snap,
yeah,
right on one of the either the top or the lower. Usually the
yep.
top. Then they're gonna explode and nearly hit you in the face, and then throw it away.
The ones I've broken the most are ones that slip onto the floor and I just step on them. Like I don't break it that much by like pinching them, but I'll be like in the middle of sewing and like pulling them off as I sew, and one ends up on the floor, whatever, you forget about it, and I just like get up out of the sewing chair and just do like, like, yeah, there goes another one.
Yeah, I lose about 3 a week to my rolling chair.
Yes, yeah, I've done that too.
That's it. That's the main killer of them.
Yeah, the rolling chair is totally worth it though. You got to slide around the shop.
Yeah, it's required. But yeah, you lose them. I think that said, I've only really bought like 2 packs of 100.
Yeah,
I maybe had gotten
yeah,
200 for like the last 5 years,
yeah,
and I'm breaking them, and
right,
still I still have them.
yeah. All right, so fifth and final item so far of the MYOG or gift guide. What you got, Matt?
Okay, this one. Should I give you the serious one, or should I give you the one that's kind of a joke?
Serious one first, and we'll do an honorable mention as a gag gift.
Okay. For your lungs, the filter, the carbon or charcoal or whatever it is filter for the
Oh,
fumes. So you've got a
for the
piece of
laser
webbing.
engraver.
Well, yes, I mean for the laser engraver, like for melting webbing. I mean, straight up, there's fumes and
You're
it's
onto
no
something.
bueno. It's
Yeah.
not good. And most people don't think about it. I think
No.
about it because I started seeing the smoke many years ago in front of my eyes, and I'm like, I'm breathing this in, aren't I? This thing is powerful. I run this all the time.
Yeah.
Like I have the automatic webbing cutter right behind me.
Hmm.
So I have this thing going. If I'm using a lighter, I have this thing going always. $20, save your lungs. And I don't know if it's really going to fix the carcinogenic stuff coming from
Sure.
nylon or whatever. But it's a start, especially if you don't have a great way to vent like outside.
Yeah. That is a great idea. I think so many makers are in their basement, in the garage, I don't know, in like a closet. They're in, most people aren't, I guess what I'm saying is most people aren't in like a wide open space with great windows and great ventilation and stuff. So that's a great point. Whether you get like the filter, you got a fan, if you have an air purifier in that room, something like that is a great idea, especially if you're cutting a lot of webbing. Like if you have a hot knife, stuff like that, you can like literally see like these little wisps coming up and they smell questionable. That is a great point. I appreciate you thinking about that, because the amount that I do it, I don't think about it. When I smell it, like, that's weird. But it's not ideal. It's pretty bad actually.
Yeah. I mean, the problem for me is I'm doing this every day. I'm
Yeah.
melting something like that. And it's like, well, that's going to catch up to me if I don't at least help mitigate it.
Right. Right.
Okay. Now here's my joke one.
Okay.
Okay. So this was a gift for me as a Christmas present. And I
Yep.
feel like it's best that I pass this on because it's so funny. So this is like a magnetic wrist thing. So say you're working on your machine and you're taking out tiny little bitty screws from the throat plate or from like your needle assembly or your bobbin assembly. You're doing something scary. Take them, plop them right onto your wrist with magnetic
Honestly,
screw holding. It's like a construction worker thing.
that is pretty smart. I actually had something somewhat similar in mind that we'll talk about in a minute, but I am totally on board with you. Those are the corniest things that you always see at like Marshalls on sale, but this is a perfect application.
It's really, I mean, this is something my brother thought of, and I've used it. It's pretty,
Yeah.
it looks silly, but it's really cool.
Yeah. But if you're making
Yeah.
in your house or your room, no one's going to see you anyway.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
you just don't want to lose the mini screws.
Oh, I look ridiculous when I got this thing on and a headlamp because I'm like under my machines, Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
But this is
We've all
cheap.
been
It's like a $5 thing, and
Yeah.
it doesn't, it's unassuming. It's unassuming,
Yeah.
but it works.
I will. I'm gonna add like a general. Again, we'll talk about this a little bit more moving forward, but a general like a place like a magnetic bowl of some sort, like at Harbor Freight. At least that's where I got mine. Use like a magnetic bowl where you can like put screws in. Stuff like that, I do think goes a really long way. Like that will, I think that'll clip to Wonder Clips. I think Wonder Clips are like a little bit magnet responsive. I think.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, like
100%.
needles. This is another tip. Oh yeah, look at that. That's perfect. That's actually really good. Um, this is another thing that Matt said, but like not Matt, Dan McEwen said, he just puts a magnet on the back of his lighter and just like always attaches it to his machine. If that works, if you have an industrial machine, or a metal machine in general. But yeah, magnets are huge. I talked about it here. We have magnet strips at every sewing machine. So next to every sewing machine, there's just thread snips, scissors, lighter, seam ripper, stuff like that. But yeah, that's a great call. That's like the perfect MYOG version of the magnet strip too, because it's like on the wrist. You don't have to screw it into the wall or anything. That's awesome.
That will save you a lot of headache. Those tiny
Yeah,
little screws all over the machine that you inevitably have to
yeah.
take out, you will lose them.
I have dropped those like in the oil bucket before too, and trying to fish that out was not a good time at all.
Yep. Yeah, so save yourself some heartache. This was like a gag originally, and it turned out to be pretty useful.
Yeah,
So I recommend something like this if that's a scare
yeah.
you've had of like losing your little screws from your machine.
That's also a way to preserve the Wonder Clips so you don't step on them. If you have that wristlet too, you can just put them on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of our MYOGers Christmas list, but I'm going to actually extend this conversation some because Matt and I also want to talk about some gadgets. So these things might end up on your Christmas list, maybe they should, but also we're just going to kind of talk about some of these gadgets that we've reviewed recently. Matt has some that he's got in his shop. I convinced Jason to spend all of $40 on some gadgets that I wanted to try out around here, and then other ones that we've had around recently. So I'm going to talk about maybe this first one that I like the most out of the ones that I've tried so far. Okay. These are real basic. I think that you could probably spend less on these, but I do really like them. And that is these things. These are glass fabric weights or like pattern weights. So I've seen people use like washers. You just get at like big washers or bean bags. Um, I've seen people just use like soda cans. You can do anything, but when you're laying out a pattern or you're trying to lay out a material and then trace out whatever you're doing, having some amount of fabric weights or things that you can apply even pressure across the pattern material to cut it out is crucial. This is something that, believe it or not, we have not really had in this makerspace up until recently, which is why I bought these. I like the glass ones because I like you can see through them. You can still see marks. You can see where you are in relation to your pattern piece. I will say a negative thing about the glass ones, they do chip. I have only had these for like 2 months, and there's like little bits taken out all over the place. But
How
the
heavy is
glass
it?
is nice. What'd you say?
How heavy is it?
I should know that. Not
Couple
super
ounces?
heavy. Yeah, definitely several ounces. There is some weight to them. Like I'm gonna weigh them and I'll put it in the description after the episode. How about that? But yeah, it's maybe I'm gonna compare these two to my phone. These two are maybe half the weight of my phone. There's 8 of them. They come in a pack. They're pretty cheap. They're like less than $10 still. But yeah, these ones I would endorse. I do like these glass fabric weights, but in general, get fabric weights if you're doing anything where you have to lay stuff out. Because one thing that you will notice, if you don't get it laid out properly, so say you're working with a woven material and it's stretched, it's not going to work out. If it's a laminate and there are these like big creases that don't come out and you don't lay them out fully, then it's going to be shorter than you want. You want these things laid out appropriately, especially if you're working with patterns and stuff. So that's my first one. Glass fabric weights, endorsed.
Those are cool. Just don't drop them on concrete
Yeah,
or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, wouldn't recommend that. What do you use for fabric weights?
I use old pieces of like of wood, and then we talked about this before. I
Mm,
have that white. I think I forgot. It's some sort of polyethylene blend. It's called
okay.
Starboard. It's like a nautical
Yeah, yeah,
thing. I got it
yep,
free from the junkyard at work, basically, like
yeah.
years and years ago. So I still use that stuff. Sometimes I'm doing stack cutting, like when I make
Hmm.
these dog quilts. I'll throw a kettlebell, like a 25 pounder,
Yeah,
onto the template
yeah,
because I've stacked so much like apex insulation up that it's like
yeah.
6
So true.
inches or more high.
Yeah,
So like I just kind of use whatever's around
yeah,
me and whatever's heavy enough.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, that is one thing I forgot. Sorry. I know people that use the like the metal washers from hardware store. Um, these obviously don't mark. There's nothing that can mark on them. So like if you get a metal thing, you saying kettlebell made me think about it because my kettlebell at home is like rusted on the bottom, which does leave marks on stuff. These will not leave any mark of any sort because they're just glass. Like there's nothing to leave anything. Which I do check that out if you are going to get some. Just make sure whatever you get doesn't do that.
that's a really good point. I've got the
It'll
next
happen.
thing for you too. You ready?
Okay, what you got?
This is a specialized tool. So it's maybe a little weird to recommend to people. So this is an iron for seam sealing tape, but the heat applied seam sealing tape. Does that make
Okay.
sense? Like a jacket.
Yes. Okay, I got questions already, but
Yeah.
yeah, go for it.
It's I forgot how much this was. I don't know. I was under $100, right? Part of
Yeah.
the gift guide, but I was like, okay, I want to try heat sealing a jacket
Sure.
with tape because I've done stuff with PSA, pressure applied tape, forever. But I'm like, okay, I wanna get something new in the toolkit, like mentally, of like figure out how this even works because, well, honestly, I've never even attempted it. And two, I was like, well, let's get another tool and maybe I'll use it for like heat sealing TPU fabric together or some other experiment down the line.
Yeah.
So I got it, and this is pretty cool. It came with Kevlar covers, and you see it's coming off because I did this months and months ago. But like basically, you just have, well, actually, I don't think it's Kevlar. I think it's Teflon. So it has this Teflon, so it doesn't stick to the tape or the fabric as it's heating up. Very cool. And I got this weird size because it's also usable for leather in some way. I don't even know what I'd do
Okay.
with it with leather. But anyway, this worked great. Very weird, specialized gadget to have because I did it for that one project and that was it.
So it's like a precision iron, would you say?
Precision iron. It's got an interesting kind of curve shape to it.
Yeah.
Because when you do the inseam like of a jacket,
Yeah.
and you go to like the armpit area and then out to the sleeve, it's kind of very strange. So
Yeah.
you need an iron that's not too wide, and this is only, maybe inch and a quarter wide.
Sure.
So like just enough for the tape, and then that's it.
Interesting. Okay, so what project did you do this on?
I don't know if I've ever even talked about it or shown it, but I got some like 3-layer Gore-Tex,
Yeah.
waterproof, breathable stuff. Made a jacket. It's like cheap, like nothing burger fabric. It was no name, generic brand.
Sure.
Just to test it out and kind of figure out my skills. And I used the
Yeah.
Learn MYOG windshell
Okay.
pattern because I just did one of those.
Yeah.
So I'm slowly working up to using this really expensive outdoor ink fabric I have with the granite print on it to make a jacket.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, start with $5 yard windshell.
Sure.
Then I'll go to, oh, I'm giving the thumbs up again. And then I'll go to $15 yard Gore-Tex and then try this. And then next will be the Ventec. So I just made a very simple rain jacket with it.
Yeah.
That was it. It's blaze orange, of course, and I just seam sealed the entire inside as best I could. It's way more difficult than PSA, obviously.
Yeah.
Because you're worried about melting the Gore-Tex inner layer.
Right.
But you also want to make sure the tape applies evenly and stays on. So it's like kind of a whole new challenge.
That is interesting. And then does the tape come with an adhesive side, or does it come just kind of like a spool of thing and then you have to heat to like activate the adhesive at all?
I wonder if I have it next to me. Actually, one second, I do. But it's one side is shiny, one side is matte. And I forgot which applies directly to the fabric. It might be the shiny side. Whichever side you actually feel resistance when you rub it against the fabric, that's the side with the adhesive. And they tell me this when I got the tape.
Sure.
And then you just iron it the best you can. You could do a piece of
Interesting.
paper over it. Like I've done vinyl transfers and stuff with just a piece of paper and a regular iron. But using that Teflon tape and then the specialized iron, I was like, it's a lot easier. And even still, it was difficult.
Interesting. That's really cool. Yeah, that's like that's next level stuff. But also, I really love that it was possible for you at all, because I know I often think about that stuff. I know it's possible, but I often just think about it in a production setting where I'm like, that is kind of that's big company stuff.
Yeah, you're thinking like, oh, this is like, I'll just leave it to the Arc'teryx in Patagonia or
Right.
whatever. It's like, no, like it may not look as clean because they have a $20,000
Sure.
hot,
Specialty
seam
machine,
taping
whatever.
machine,
Yeah.
and they're on jacket number 50,000. Sure, it's not going to look as good. Who cares? It's still doable. And this is the tape, and one side is the shinier side I'm showing you now.
Yeah.
It was simple and it was really cheap. It's like $1 for like 5 feet or something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty good actually.
So I made a
sweet.
jacket for like $20.
Where'd you get that tape?
Who Quest Outfitters.
Okay.
They sold me the Gore-Tex too.
Yeah.
And it was like some super sales, like $10 a yard for Gore-Tex. And like, yeah. So they have a nice selection of really cheap generic stuff that's worth experimenting with.
That is pretty awesome. I love that. That's like, so, I mean, that is who we are. Like, we don't want to use the phrase like, oh, that's big company stuff. So I love that there are more that you're doing that Quest is offering that. There are some of these things that are starting to take those barriers down. That sounds pretty sweet. I like that idea a lot.
And it was a light jacket. It was a 6.5 ounce jacket.
That's impressive.
No pit zips or anything like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't too intricate, but it had the normal wind vest style hand pockets. Seam tape, 6.5 ounces.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
all right.
Weird suggestion, but niche tool, fun, specialized use.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's a good shout. All right. My next gadget. This one's going to depend on your machine a lot in terms of the availability, but binding attachment. If you're going to be doing long binding, I don't use this for like if I'm binding a fanny pack, a tote bag, but if I'm making a tarp, I'm using the binding attachment. This one in particular is from, I think this is from Nashville Components. I think it's called, or Tennessee Components, something like that. But this was extremely expensive. This was custom made for our industrial machine. You will have options, better options available, maybe more affordable options, should I say. You will have them available for your machine that will be less than $300. But for long seams, you cannot, like if you're binding a 12-foot tarp, you just do not want to do that by hand. Use something that's going to apply even pressure, a good seam. The stitch will be strong. Binding attachment, crucial for long stuff like tarps.
This is the El Cheapo version. I've
How
got
much that
one a
run you?
little
Like
better.
less than $20?
Yeah, this is like a $15 thing.
Yeah.
So I've got like a bunch of these, and I've got a couple that are better with, the feed dogs and stuff like that. I mean, can't go wrong, honestly. I mean, this is really cheap, but like if that's all you had and you never had one before, get the cheap one, and then you'll realize that maybe the expensive one is awesome.
Yeah.
Because if you use it enough, anyway.
Right.
I don't have one of those, like what you guys have.
Really?
I don't. I mean, I have one that has the needle plate and the binding attachment like that attached together, but I don't have a custom thing for my machine. So it ends up with like acceptable results, but not the best.
Yeah. What would you say is the limitation, or like how difficult is it to use that one and get a good result, like the cheap one?
If you're really like vigilant with how it's getting fed, the ribbon is getting fed through the channels of the of this guy, the cheap one, then it's fine. Are you going to get exactly the same consistency of your needle hitting in the same spot every time? No, absolutely not. So I think that's the main difference. Like you have to babysit the cheap one a lot to make sure that, you have ribbon going through and it's not like folding up on one of the edges on the upper or lower edge. And then all of a sudden you've got a big issue to deal with. Yeah. Yeah.
One thing that I would say that's nice about the cheap ones is that the cheap ones, you can get different size grosgrain. Like this is only for 5/8 inch grosgrain, I think. Like that is the only grosgrain I can use with this one at all. Like it does not work with 1 inch. It doesn't work with 3/4 inch. It only fits one size. So if you get the cheap ones, well, and to say like we don't have 4 versions of this. Like even as a company, we're not spending over $1,000 on binding machine and binding attachments. So like the cheap ones, you can get a 1 inch, a 1.5 inch, a 3. Get the different variations, or for the grosgrain that you have the most of. But that is pretty sweet because also the cheap one, it sounds like, and I haven't used that one that Matt has, but binding is like you have to be extremely vigilant when you're doing binding at all. That a binding attachment normally just makes it so that you can focus on other things other than every variable. Like when you're binding, you're worried about the fold. Is it actually in half? You're where the stitch is running. Is the fabric being sandwiched by the binding appropriately? There's like all these variables that you're checking at the same time. The binding attachment just helps normalize that fold. So you're a little bit more concerned about, is the fabric applied correctly? Is the stitch where it needs to go? You still have to be aware, but like you're just kind of taking one of those variables away. So it's a little bit less stressful for you.
Yeah. And that's probably one of the biggest variables too. So
yeah, that's true.
it helps a lot.
Yeah, it is.
It does a lot for you. And especially the problem is if you have a bunch of stacked stuff all in one jump, like, so you're stitching along, it's 2 layers of fabric. Nobody cares. It's totally fine. Oh, now we have 4 layers of webbing. Oh, big jump. So then that also helps with that as well. Honestly, that's why I like to hand bind some things, because then I can like push both ways. I can push the fabric in, I can push the binding over it, get that perfect sandwich, and use clips if I need to, but literally just use my fingers and push it towards each other. On stuff like that with those big jumps, which every pack I make that's bound is like that, like 5 or 6 times down one seam.
That's definitely a better way to think about it, I guess. Like on seams, I said a tarp, which does make sense, but for seams where it's going to be the same, the thickness will be synonymous across the entire seam. That's where binding really comes into play. But for packs, tote bags, fanny packs, where you're going to be going over, like 2 layers of seam, all of a sudden you're going to the fanny pack wing, that's thick. You're going to be going over the hip belt, that's thick. A spacer mesh pocket, like stuff like that, where it's going to be going from thick, thin, thick, thin. That's true. I think that's where I like doing hand binding the most. Which also is the one that takes the least amount of time. Like binding a fanny pack takes like 6 minutes, a couple of minutes on both sides. But the tarp, you're doing like 40 feet all around the perimeter, so it'll take forever.
Yeah, you have to zip through it, or else you're not gonna bind the perimeter of the tarp. You're gonna just do something else. Which I've still never done that. I've never bound a tarp. No, I've made tarps, but I've never bound them ever.
Oh, you should have rolled
Next time I'm gonna try that because of the recommendation from you guys. Maybe it saves me headache. I never done it.
I made a couple tarps, and the first one I made, I rolled hem, but it was the first one I ever made. It's basically like a sun tarp. I just made a DWR. It's like a breathable material. It's not good at all. Everything else since then I have bound, and I like the stability of it. Like your tie-out points, everything feels like really secure because you have the grow grain going around the perimeter. I like it a lot. That does. I'm going to skip you real quick because I do want to talk about the next gadget, and we just mentioned roll hems, so it's a perfect segue. All right, so I have a little bit of beef with these. I got like a cheap set of like, I don't know, 8 rolled hem feet in here. This little capsule that I got on Amazon. It was, I don't know, $15 or something. By the way, I can put all these links to the things that I got in the podcast. I'll ask Matt to send me some links for some of these cool tools that he has as well. So if you want to check out any of these things, just go in the description and see what we got. But rolled hem feet, I don't know if I'm a fan. I know some people are. Jason has come. We talked about this once I got these. He said he likes the one on his machine. I know Dan from Onto Ultralight. He uses a rolled hem foot to create his tarps, and he loves them. This could be a user error. I'm not saying that they're not good for everyone, but I don't personally know if they work for me. They're not my biggest. I'm not the biggest fan of these tools.
I'm not either.
Okay. I just couldn't get it to work. I guess.
Too. I don't use them. Luckily, I don't do stuff that requires it often.
I do avoid that too, I guess.
Yeah, that's not my jam. There's a reason I do non-stretchy pack fabric. I hate working with tarp fabric so much.
Yeah.
And I've had no luck with those, by the way, with the rolled hem foot. And it's probably user error for me. I mean, I don't have that much practice with it, but I just hand fold everything now. I hand fold that too if I have to.
I feel better. This is another time where I use Wonder Clips pretty religiously. Is if I'm doing a rolled hem, like it's a good example, like top of like a stuff sack, like a roll top dry bag stuff sack type of thing. I make a bunch of those. That's a rolled hem. But for me, like I'd rather I typically do like a 3/4 inch fold so I can throw some grow grain in there as a stiffener, and I'm just going to measure that out. I'm actually pretty much going to eyeball out 3/4 inch, fold it twice, and clip it in place, and that's pretty much all I do. But I don't know. I just don't love using the machine. I'd rather clip it in place or just eyeball it all together, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just my take on rolled hem. Again, it's user error. I do think it could be easier, especially if you're doing long seams. This is again,
Yeah.
but like if I'm doing a long seam, I'm binding it, and I have an attachment that I do like that does work. So again, it is a biased take. I would encourage people to try them out because again, it's like I think it's less than $20 to get these, so you should try it out. And there are people that really really like them. It just didn't work for me personally.
I've got the next one for you, and
Yeah,
this
I'll see
is
it.
this is adjacent. This is sewing adjacent. However, I've just seen
Okay.
people do it. I put this on my packaging a lot of the time. You can use regular stamps and ink to print onto certain fabrics.
Okay.
Now this sounds like, what are you talking about? Why would you mention this on the Ripstop by the Roll podcast? We sell printed fabric, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you're not going to do anything intricate, so get that out of your head right away.
Fair.
But if you get a stamp, and yes, you can get custom stamps on Etsy. This was not, luckily, it's a paw. Like I could find that easily.
Sure.
You can put this onto DCF, and it will last a long time. I put this on a DCF food bag 5 years ago. Used it on a lot of nights of camping for a lot of different stuff. It is still on there. The paw print is still on the DCF.
Wow.
Will it be permanent? I don't know. 5 years feels pretty permanent. And this is dumb cheap. This cost me $10 for the stamp ink and for the stamper itself. So add a little flair, a little customization if you want.
I like that. Well, that also gives you the chance to get like the normal cheaper colors because that's everyone's qualm with DCF. I totally get it. There's a reason that I don't typically purchase it very much myself, is that it can be expensive. Is it rad? Absolutely. Is it worth it when you do it? I've never heard anyone regret printing on DCF or printing on outdoor ink, but if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. I totally respect that. So this is a really cool way. Also, you can do like small stuff. Like it wouldn't be worth if you just wanted your initials on your food bag, let's say, like it probably wouldn't be worth it to print that just for your initials. But that's something you could do. And I've actually never thought about that because I do all my marking with Sharpie. I know that would pain a lot of people, but I don't know. I don't mind it, but like I do all my marking with DCF. So when I cut it out or with Sharpie, so when but I do notice that Sharpie stays on DCF, and I guess it's kind of the same thing that if you just put ink on it, it's gonna stay there.
Yeah, I mean you can just mark it up with a Sharpie too, but the thing about this is it's extremely repeatable.
Yeah.
The ink lasts a long time. Maybe you just wanted like a calling card on your projects that you can stamp it onto. Now I haven't tried this with, other than DCF. Like I just haven't tried it. I don't know. It hasn't come up, but it's a fun little experiment, and your mileage may vary. You have to make sure that you actually dry it before you start moving it around. So like ideally you're setting it on a flat table, you're stamping it, you're letting it sit for like a couple hours at least, just to be sure it's not going to get messed up. But yeah, mine lasted forever on a food bag that gets rolled and rolled and rolled and rolled. So it's a cool thing. I recommend it.
I like that. That's also really inexpensive. It's fun. Like you said, it's repeatable. It's kind of a cool way to add like your own brand or your own flair to stuff if you don't want to do full print. So I do totally support that. That does make me think. It reminds me of when we talked to Mark Shadalow. If you want to go back to episode, I don't remember the number, but it was where he talked about like the Chunky Donkey backpack, the guy that kind of made like the Ben and Jerry's Nike skateboard collab backpack. Super cool guy. We would like to have him on again eventually. But one thing he mentioned was dyeing fabric. And I've always wanted to take the multicam white or multicam alpine and dye that in Rit dye and make stuff. That just, I don't know, that feels very DIY or like that seems like it's very much who we are as people that listen to this episode, and people out here at Ripstop is kind of like just try stuff out. So I would definitely support people doing that too. Obviously check out Outdoor Ink, but I guess I think about them as being two separate things altogether. Like if you want to dye your own fabric, that is a different level than getting like Outdoor Ink printed, like that's just, you're looking for two different things.
It is. And funny enough, you can use Rit dye on DCF too. It's just not
really
as effective as you would think. Yeah. If you go back to my YouTube channel from back when I was in college still, so we're talking ancient video now. I
pre-TikTok guys,
pre-TikTok, pre-Gen Z brain rot. I made this video and I was like, let me just try to dye some DCF because it was my first time getting this stuff. I'd never done anything with it. I was like, okay, this is going to be a banger YouTube video because nobody's even seen this stuff get dyed before. And then we like left for Christmas break or something like that. And I was gone for 2 weeks, and I left like
Yeah.
a piece of DCF sitting in a bowl in my garage for 2 weeks. Now, just cold water. I didn't heat it up.
Yeah.
I did none of that.
Okay.
And it worked. It was like it's a 2.9 in white. And it
probably.
turned orange like I had dyed it, but it was very light. But it worked. It absorbed
That's
it.
cool.
It just took a super long time. So it's not really feasible DIY necessarily, but it works.
Yeah. Well, and I would imagine with a woven material, it would transfer much cleaner than DCF too. Like there's DCF's a unique material in that regard. So if you did, I don't know, Cordura multicam Alpine, let's say, it would probably take pretty well.
Yeah. Well, this is the hybrid, so it just went on the face fabric.
Right. But
Yeah.
even that, like, it prints well, just a weirder, just a weirder material to try and dye.
Yep. And this was
That's pretty
pre-outdoor ink, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure I bought the fabric from you guys, and I was
Sure.
like scouring the internet because Z-Packs used to make orange DCF bags back then.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wonder where I can get that because they weren't selling it. Nobody's selling it.
Sure.
I'm like emailing Dyneema, some nobody guy. They're like, sorry, buddy, we're not helping you. I'm like, okay. So what do? I guess I get some Rit dye and see what happens. Yeah.
That's
so anyway,
awesome.
that problem is solved now, but it's possible
Yeah.
to do something with it.
I love that. And get your stamps. There's endless amounts of stamps out there.
Yeah.
All right, next gadget that I would say still testing out. The jury's still out on whether I love this one or not, or just like this one. This is kind of a seam guide. It's got a magnetic bottom here, attaches. It's got this little clippy thing that you can pinch down. It also has this little screw that you can adjust the height. So if you screw it down, then it lifts the foot up higher. If you loosen it up, then the foot goes lower. But this is a seam guide, so you can keep a 1/4 inch seam allowance, 1/2 inch seam allowance, whatever you want to use. You just measure it out and then clip this in place. I would say this thing is good. It works really well for what it is. I'm not going to call this user error, but I would say that this is for people that have a seam allowance that is more important to them than what my projects allow. I've used this a couple of times and it was good. The magnet stays in place very, very well. I love the little presser foot that keeps it down there. I would say for the most part, I guess I just don't change seam allowance very much because I pretty much sew with the same one every time and I don't think about it. So I'm glad I have this for things that I need, when I need them. But for the most part, I don't end up grabbing it that much because I pretty much just line it up with the edge of my presser foot, and that's my seam allowance every time because we have like 5/8 inch grow grain, so I just always bind to that size.
Okay, that makes things pretty simple and good. I like that.
I wanted to test it out, and like I said, it did work well. I love the little mouth thing.
So you guys have all the fancy gadgets at the Ripstop by the Roll House. See here, we use the most simplistic possible versions of everything. This is like, I don't know, this like came with something. This was free somehow. I don't know how I got this. Same deal, magnet.
Yep.
Most of the time I don't even use this honestly because my needle plate just has the markations.
That's true. Yeah, I think ours does too. I never look at them though.
Yeah, I mean I had to get a special one just with it. But it just saves you a lot of time.
Yeah.
Sewinggold.com. Those guys, I felt good supporting them. They've made so many good videos for me to help me fix my stuff. I was like, yeah, I'll spend $65 on a needle plate from you guys. Thanks. But it's a nice thing because I do change seam allowance like a lot. Like even just for like one bag, I'm using multiple different seam allowances every time. Yeah. So I don't know, like the main seams on a backpack are always 1/2 inch.
Okay.
I almost always do 1/2 inch just because I'm going to fell it or what. I just want a 1/2 inch. But then I'll do something like a front pocket assembly where you have a skid plate and then you have your stretch mesh right above it. I'll do a 1/4 inch and then I'll bind it with 3/4 inch.
Okay.
So I don't know. It just varies a lot.
Yeah.
So I just love having those lines.
That actually I would say is a pro for your seam guide here, because like my seam guide for people listening that can't see it, it has like a little clip on it that like kind of pinches the fabric down on their side. It has like a little foot that clamps down. Matt's is just like a bar that you can attach. That is one benefit I think to just the bar is the little clamp can get in the way. Like if you're going through stuff that like again varies in height, if you're going through 2 layers and all of a sudden you have like webbing to go through, that clamp it's not a tight clamp. It's not going to impact your machine at all, but it's just something else to kind of get in the way. Where if you just want an arm to keep you in place, then I mean, I suppose you could use the side of this, but maybe something a little bit. Maybe this is over engineered. I guess is what I'm saying. Like you don't need the hand to clamp it down there. You probably just need a bar to keep your line straight.
Can I tell you what I don't like about that one?
Yeah.
It's another step.
Yes.
Because you're gonna have to lift up that presser foot thing on that guide, and then you're gonna have to put your fabric under it and line it up, and it's just another. There's already like a ritual of steps that I have to do before I start sewing, and it's not many steps, but there's a ritual, and I don't want to add any more because it already takes enough time. It's like, oh, okay, I got bobbin thread. Oh, cool. Oh, now we're threaded. Oh, we're ready to go. Okay, let me put everything in place and start stitching. Do my lock stitch. Okay.
Yeah.
But now I'm gonna add another one to it, which for me now is like this goofy muscle memory. I can't. I physically can't.
Yeah.
It take me out of it.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Mine, two things. I noticed that the foot is pretty big, and it, like you have to put the seam guide pretty far away from the presser foot to get it to work out appropriately. So you can't get a fine margin of a seam allowance. One, two, what was I going to say? Oh, this is just huge. Like compared to yours, comparing yours to mine, like this is 2.5 inches long by like over an inch thick. Matt, yours looks like not even an inch wide by an inch and a half wide or long, maybe.
It's probably 3/4 by 1.25.
Yeah,
it's very small.
Yeah, that and something that's small or something this big could be really annoying if you're working with a big project, trying to feed all of that through the sewing machine. Having something else this is an inch tall, like off the sewing machine, because that little screw, like I said, plus inch and a half wide, 3 inches long. It's just kind of a big piece to have in your sewing area there.
Yep.
All right, you got one more tool or one more gadget for us, Matt?
I think I've actually run out of gadgets. I think I've shown everything else I have on this show. I've been like, if you see me glancing around just looking, I'm like, I wonder what's around me that I could show. It's like, I've shown that. Oh, that's boring. This is interesting though. This is not a gadget. This is the world's most expensive fabric I've ever purchased.
Okay.
And I'm curious if you knew about it or not. I've not tested this. It's from Teijin Fabrics. It's called like Steel Force or something like. It's a very silly name. It's clearly not Americans making this. It's, who knows? It's probably China, like every other fabric mill. But the idea is it's fully woven UHMW PE. So it's Dyneema, and here's the weird part. There's no data online. So maybe the gadget here is being very wary with your purchases for MYOG, because this cost me $45 a yard for this fabric, which by the way is just white. There's no fancy print. I can't tell what the right or wrong side of this fabric is. There was no information on the website. I thought you just had a piece of paper. It looks like a piece of paper. I think I got calendared, but there's also uncalendared, and frankly, I can't tell the difference.
Wait, how heavy do you think this is? Or like what weight?
Got me. I don't know. I literally don't know. I saw somebody on Reddit. They were like, yeah, check out this new fabric. It's fully woven. And it's light. It's very light. It's lighter than Ultra 200X for sure. By maybe half an ounce. But I'd say it's comparable to the Venom TPU from you guys.
Okay.
Like similar deal with like trying to cut it. It's like not super easy. So I don't know what to think of this yet. I've had a lot of people asking me questions like, oh, you bought the world's most expensive fabric. What do you think? Not a clue. So there's your gadget is be smart. Don't purchase random things from websites that you can't understand the product descriptions of. Let me do that for you.
I was going to say, I think you're kind of the champion of that, because I have been the benefactor of some materials from you that you're like, hey, I have a lot of this stuff and I don't know what it is and I don't know what to do with it.
Do you want any more sailcloth? I have 15 rolls to my right that is just taking up so much space.
Sure. Yeah. I just cleaned the makerspace, so there's room for new stuff that sits around for too long.
I'm kind of bad about that, where I'm just picking stuff up randomly, and I don't know if it's naivety about if it's going to work for what I want. Turns out a lot of sailcloth is not actually that good for making bags of any kind.
I have experienced that too. I made like a ZPP, just like a DOP kit thing, because I thought it'd be cool to have something see-through. Plus, it's like really easy to wash out. And to be fair, the bag has held up really well, but the handle ripped out after like 2 months. Like the stitch, there's just no. So this was not remotely part of the outline here, but I do have a theory for that, or to help people, because I love to include like see-through bits. Like on the ski bag I just made, I used like a clear material that we have, kind of like the sailcloth, because I wanted to put like my contact info or something, just to have like my name on my ski bag in some capacity. Um, so I didn't want to just like sew this on because it would just rip out. So I just put DCF tape on the edges, like folded it around, because then you have something that has like a little bit more structure, I guess. And I think I probably should have done that too. Like put DCF tape where I would have done the bar tack of the handle, because it's just plastic. Like I think the handle's ripped out because there's just no stitch holding power in something that's just plastic, it seems.
Yeah, that was my issue exactly with it. So I've done basically nothing with that. But that was a free, well, next to free local find where some lady was just giving this stuff away. I was just like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I'll pick it up. So
You have inspired me though. I've definitely gone on Facebook Marketplace and just seen like what fabric is out there. One day I didn't actually pick this up and I kind of regret it, but one day I found that somebody had XLPE foam like what we have. He said he's like, I have 40 panels of this. You have to take all of it and it's free. I just want it gone. And I kind of wish I had, because I would have made endless amounts of stuff with that.
you didn't pick that up?
No,
Dude,
I was
you
like,
have a
I would have to
warehouse at your disposal.
I know.
You can
But I
just
had to
put
get the work
this.
van. I have to drive over there. Like, yeah, maybe it's still available. I don't know who else would want that. So maybe I got to check it out.
I don't know if I've told enough people about this, but you have to check Facebook and Craigslist. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, you have to check it because you will come up on insane deals. I mean,
Yeah.
I think I picked up literally 20 yards of sailcloth for $50.
That's
The
crazy.
lady's just like, she's like, yeah, I'll take something for it, but I don't
Yeah.
really care. Just get rid of it, please. To somebody, that's gold.
Right.
I've picked up great machines off of Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
I've picked. To me, that's might be my next YouTube video, is just how to search for, find, and vet sewing machines that you find on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
Find who's scamming you and who's not scamming you, and what's
Yeah.
actually a decent deal, and what like you would get and why. Because I feel like that's
Yeah.
a
That'd be
very
sweet.
niche skill set that I've developed over the last X amount of years, where like I'm looking all the time
Yeah.
and I'm smelling out who's the scammer and who's not.
Yeah.
And then is the machine going to be a brick? And then is it worth driving 2 hours to go try it out?
Yes. Yeah. I would be interested in that video. Like I would watch that for sure, because I'm somewhat in the place where I started looking on Facebook Marketplace for sewing machines, and I kind of thought about getting an industrial machine at home, or like bring it here to the shop, and then just whenever my life moves on, just bring it with me. Because the more I sew, the more I'm kind of like, I don't know if this sewing thing's going to end. It like one day if I leave Ripstop by the roll, like maybe I want to sew more at home. Maybe I don't want to go to the office to sew. You know, like when I made that tote bag, like maybe I wanted to make that at home and not go back into the office to do that. So I've thought about it. So I could use that video personally.
Honestly, it could be a mistake because you get that machine at home, there's nothing stopping you anymore.
That's so true.
Then you're going to be like
That's a
me,
great point.
staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning, stitching away. You know, you're just like, oh gosh, I got so much
Yeah.
to do. I got to stay up all night and keep doing this. So just
Yeah.
be warned. That's what I'm going to say. Be warned.
Fair,
But find a good
fair.
deal, because you can find one.
I'm going to send you some links now, Matt. We'll just be texting all night.
Do it. I've done that for people. By the way, if maybe I shouldn't solicit my services, but anyway, Instagram. If you find a machine that you're questioning, send me a DM, Red Paw Packs on Instagram. I'll look at it and I'll tell you if you should go pick up the machine and either speed down the highway or just stay home, because sometimes you have to be really quick.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if someone posts an industrial machine for $200, someone's going to pick that up guaranteed that day, probably, if it works. If it's broken, nobody will. But that happened to me. I almost got that cylinder arm we were talking about. I have no space for. It was $500. It was 2.5 hours away, down in the middle of nowhere in Florida. I was like, I should go get that. And I called and they didn't answer my messages, and they sold it to somebody else.
Well, Matt, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for sharing all the gadgets with us today and building this MYOG or Christmas list, wish list. If you need any help, let us know, people. You know where to find Matt, but we'll link everything in the description. Red Paw Packs on Instagram, redpawpacks.com, I think. I know your website. We'll link that down below as well. But yeah, thanks for sharing this time with us.
Pleasure as always. And I love to talk gadgets, so this is a fun one.
You were the perfect guy. I knew I bought these and I was like, I really want to do an episode about gadgets. And someone was like, oh, who can I have on? I'm like Matt. Like, yeah, but he already showed us his like heat gun and his chair and stuff. What else do you think he has? I'm like, oh, he's got stuff. I know.
And I've got more. I've just forgotten them. I'll find it tomorrow and be like, should have brought that up.
Part 2, baby. Part 2. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Matt.
Cheers.